Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sage Live of March 2025. I am Giulia Lanza. I'm a material scientist and work at SLAC National Accelerator Laboratory. I'm the co-founder of the Sage Journey program, and I'm also your MC today. Daniela Partida is our Zoom host, and thank you, and our coordinator. So thank you to Daniela also for organizing this Sage Live. Before we start, let me briefly explain what the Sage Journey is all about and how the Sage Live fits in that journey. So Sage Journey is a program whose mission is to inspire and encourage students to explore STEM careers for their future. And we do this by offering free summer camps, paid internship programs, professional growth sessions, and many opportunities to connect with professionals who care about you and your future. So Sage Live, this webinar, is part of the Sage Journey. And it is an online gathering of students like you who have attended the Sage Summer Camp and are curious about the next step in the Sage journey. And it's also time to reconnect with the Sage volunteers and all the people that are around Sage. It is held monthly via Zoom between August and May, and we cover many topics like career-related topics like resume workshop or how to prepare for an interview, or exciting topics such as quantum computing, machine learning, and, like today, medical isotope research. So our guest today, and we are very honored to have her here, is Katie Cutler. Dr. Cutler is chair of the Medical Isotope Research and Production Department at Brookhaven National Laboratory in Long Island, New York. Dr. Cutler moved to University of Missouri Research Reactor Center's Radiopharmaceutical Group in 1998, and there she developed a reactor processing methods for radioisotope such as lutetium-177, and she developed targeting molecules such as nanoparticles for selective delivery. Now, she will talk about medical isotope research and production program at Brookhaven and the LINAC isotope producer, always at Brookhaven. Dr. Cutler won several awards, including the Brookhaven Pinnacle Award in Science and Technology, as well as the Secretary of Energy Achievement Award, which is the highest award offered by the Department of Energy. And she has served in many leadership roles and in society, such as the Society of Radiopharmaceutical Sciences and the Society of Nuclear Medicine and Molecular Imaging. Please join me to welcome Dr. Cutler today. Here you go.
So good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. And I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk to you today. What I'm going to try to do is just to talk to you about how my career got started in this, and just let you know that it wasn't as if I started out knowing anything about nuclear medicine or the national laboratories or the Society of Nuclear Medicine. It just kind of happened as it went along the way. And but I have always been very excited about learning about things, and have really appreciated the opportunity that being a radiochemist has provided me. So for no other further ado, I'm going to talk about how a farm girl became a scientist and impacted patients' lives. So I thought kind of show you, because not everybody knows really where Brookhaven is. So if you see this little jet of an island off of here, this is actually where Long Island is, and just kind of off the coast of New York. And Brookhaven is located pretty much in the middle of that island. So Brookhaven was originally started as Camp Upton, and they trained soldiers here, and then it became the first national lab, and it's actually the only national lab that was started as for Peace of Atoms lab. So it's never had anything really to do with the war effort. I originally grew up in Ohio. I grew up in a small town called Blanchester. It was really small. We had mostly horses, our cows and pigs. It was a big farming community. My high school was really small. We had a graduating class of like 130 students. And it was a small town where everybody knew everybody and everything that you did, which was one reason why I decided to go to a bigger city to go to college. So when you're from Ohio, there's really two large universities that you could go to. One is Ohio State in Columbus, and the other is the University of Cincinnati. And I decided to go to the University of Cincinnati, which you can see was not far from where I grew up. If you've not been to this part of Ohio, it's actually very beautiful. There are lots of mountains, and it's a kind of German area, and the food is really good, which I didn't completely appreciate until I moved away. So, as I said, when I grew up, I lived in Blanchester, and I went to Blanchester High School. We were called the Wildcats. And the big thing that we did there is on Fridays, we'd go and watch the football games, and we also, baseball was actually really important. So when I graduated from high school, being in a small town, I really wanted to go and do something that I thought I could really impact society. So that meant I needed to go to college. And I first thought I wanted to be a veterinarian. I was going to go and be a veterinarian. And I was talking to my guidance counselor, and she said, well, I don't think that's a great idea, because being a veterinarian is basically running a small business. And I'm not sure that you can be successful as a woman in that role. So then I started looking at other things, and I said, well, I'm gonna do engineering. I was always interested in science and building things, and I thought engineering would be a good career. And so when I was looking at engineering schools, it turned out that the University of Cincinnati had a really good engineering school. John Glenn was a professor there. And they had this program where you would go, your first year, you would go to school. And then starting in your second year, you would go to school half the year, and then half the year you would go work for a company. So I thought this would be a really good opportunity. It would give me experience. And when I graduated, I would be in a good position to get a job. Unfortunately, when I went there, I found out that I was not as interested in engineering. And so I ended up changing my degree. The other really nice thing about University of Cincinnati is that they really wanted to get undergraduates very involved in research. So there was lots of opportunities to do research there. And I thought, based on my background of coming from a really small school, that it would probably be really important for me to get involved in research. So I joined a group that was doing toxicology, and they were looking at the impacts of chemicals on particularly the public workforce, and particularly like firefighters and sewer workers that were exposed to things. And we were investigating how that really impacted them and their ability to reproduce. And it turned out that the guy who was working there was an incredible mentor that really taught me how to do research, and really got me interested in switching my degree from engineering. And I ended up going into biochemistry and learned a lot about how the body functioned. So I got my bachelor's degree in biochemistry, but during that time, I met a professor who was studying compounds that he was making for nuclear medicine. And he was showing some images in class and how you could diagnose disease early on. And this really piqued my interest. And I went and talked to him, and was really interested in joining his lab. And he encouraged me. And so I joined his lab to get a PhD in inorganic chemistry. And it gave me the opportunity to actually develop compounds that actually went into clinical trials. And I actually had the opportunity to be involved in those clinical trials and see how it was working, which was really quite incredible. And based on that work, I got my PhD. And then when I graduated, I wanted to continue doing radiopharmaceuticals. So I went to Washington University, which had one of the best programs in the country. And so I went there and developed drugs and supported some clinical trials, which was really nice. But then the University of Missouri had a research reactor, and they reached out to me and said, we would really like you to come and grow a program here. And it was a little bit of a risky move because they were having some challenges, but they had the most FDA approved drugs from any university. So that I wanted to go there and do that. So I worked there for about 20 years and then was interested in working with the alpha emitters, which I couldn't do there. But they could do that at Brookhaven. So Brookhaven reached out to me and said, we want you to come and direct our medical isotope program. And so I've been here for about 10 years. And so it's been an incredible journey, and I've really enjoyed it. So my first big move was I grew up in the country and moved to Cincinnati, which was a big city. And I had to get used to what it was like to live in a place where there was lights and things happening all the time. And it was a little bit less secure than what it was in the country. But I quickly learned to love it and really enjoyed my time at University of Cincinnati. When I was there, they weren't very good at football, but they had a pretty good basketball team. And so it was nice to get involved in the sports and I really enjoyed my time at the University of Cincinnati. And so when I was there, that's really when I started learning about radiopharmaceuticals. And if you don't know what a radiopharmaceutical is, it's really a drug that contains a radioactive atom, and they can be used for both imaging, but we can also use them for therapy. So it's really the radioactive atom that decays, giving off a photon or an X-ray that we can image when it leaves the patient's body using a camera, or decays giving off a particle, and that particle can be used to break bonds such as the DNA, and that thereby ablates cancer cells. And the nice thing about these is that we can give really small amounts. So when we're talking about diagnostic radiopharmaceuticals, we're giving something on the picomolar amount, so they don't perturb the systems that we're interested in. And the isotopes have a really short half-life. So they stay around long enough for us to image, and then they decay away and they have no impact on the patient. And so radiopharmaceuticals are really growing in interest because they allow us to image on the molecular level non-invasively, but also because they allow us to treat disease. And particularly, we're interested in treating patients who have cancer in which it is spread to multiple sites, which become very difficult to treat. And so this is really growing and really where I've spent a large part of my research. So in the US, diagnostic radiopharmaceuticals are used in about 20 million nuclear medicine procedures a year. The US is the highest user. We're about 50% of the global market. And it's predicted that within the next 10 years that this is really going to grow. So there's a really huge need for workforce development. And so if you'd like to learn about all the different opportunities, I would suggest that you go to the Society of Nuclear Medicine and Molecular Imaging, and they have videos that you can look at and learn about all the different opportunities there are in the field. So what is molecular imaging and why are we interested in it? And so the reason that we're interested in it is that it enables us to non-invasively visualize in vivo function and what's happening in the body. So what you're looking at here, this is actually a scan of the brain. And what we're looking at here is blood flow perfusion. And this becomes important in imaging patients, for instance, who are undergoing a stroke, or if they've had a seizure or a blockage. This enables us to image this, and it guides the physician on how they can best treat these patients. The other thing that we can use it for is for characterization. And so this is an image in the middle of what is called the dopamine receptor. And so at the top above the red line, what we see is this is a normal patient who's been imaged, and we see the uptake in their dopamine receptor. And it turns out that there's a number of diseases that impact the uptake to the dopamine receptor, and one of which is Parkinson's disease. So below the line, what you see is a patient who has Parkinson's disease, and what we see is that the uptake in that dopamine receptor is reduced. And so this imaging is allowing us to diagnose that this patient has Parkinson's. And without this, the only other way you can diagnose is by taking a specimen from the brain and doing a study. And this is a little bit more tolerable. The other thing that you can use these for is to, when we're treating these patients, we can determine if these therapies are actually working. So below this, what you see is that this patient is now taking a drug for treating the Parkinson's. And what we can see is that this uptake in this dopamine receptor has increased from before when the patient was on the treatment. So we see that this patient is responding to this treatment. We don't have to depend on the patient telling us it's working. We can quantitate that with this image and basically use this to monitor these patients with time. So this is really a unique capability that we can do with these diagnostic nuclear medicine scans. Now, a growing area that we're using for nuclear medicine is to really look at patients who have cancer and try to look at how we can best treat them. So here on the left, this is actually an image of a patient who has a neuroendocrine tumor. So you see this kind of yellow-red area. This is the tumor of the patient. And one of the things that we're interested in treating these patients is how well the agent's going to be taken up in the tumor versus the normal tissue, particularly the liver that you can see here. And so what we see here is that this patient has really high uptake in their tumor and very low uptake in their liver. So this patient is a candidate for targeted therapy, and this lets the doctor know that they can treat this patient and that this patient can go on and have this treatment. If we saw that there was high uptake in the liver, that would tell the physician that they couldn't do this treatment and they would have to look at something else. So this is what is often referred to as precision medicine. So using a diagnostic for the doctor to inform how best to treat these patients. Now, this is what actually got me involved in nuclear medicine. This is one of the images that a professor showed in one of my classes. And so this is actually a scan of a young boy. The boy was having some bone pain. They didn't really understand what was going on. So they took an x-ray. And so on the left-hand side, you see the x-ray. And the x-ray basically doesn't show much of anything. And you can basically see the bones, but we don't see any abnormality. And based on this, you would think that everything was fine with this boy. So they went on to do a nuclear scan, which you see on the right. And what you see here is this high uptake in the femur of this young boy. And it turns out that this young boy had an osteosarcoma, or a bone tumor. And this nuclear scan was able to visualize this at an early stage, which then informed them what to do. So then the physician would know basically to go on and basically help treat this patient. Now, if we had to wait to see this in an x-ray, we would have to see a 50% loss of that bone mineral content before we could visualize it, which means that this boy would have to have significant disease, which would be very hard to treat. So being able to visualize this very early before we see an anatomical difference actually helps us to basically treat these children at a very early age, which is what piqued my interest and got me interested in actually looking at nuclear medicine. So I talked to the professor. I'm like, I'm really interested in this. Do you have any opportunities? And at that time, what he was interested in doing was developing agents, not just for treating it, but for palliating the pain. So it turns out that when patients get cancer, a lot of times that cancer metastasizes to the bone. And these metastases are very debilitating in the pain that they cause. And these patients end up being immobile and not able to enjoy their life. So they're interested in trying to develop agents that would actually treat this pain and enable these patients to enjoy their life. So at the time, what I got interested in was developing these rhenium agents, which we actually took into clinical trials. But also there was about 5 different agents shown here that people were interested in imaging or in developing to treat therapy. And the challenge is nobody completely understood how these worked and which one was actually going to be better. So this became my thesis project, to look at the mechanism of these agents, how they worked, and to help inform which one was actually going to be the best agent going forward. So at the time when we looked at this, there was 2 mechanisms they thought of how this worked. So they thought that either one, what was happening is that these agents were being absorbed on the bone and basically remaining there intact. Or 2, that what was happening is the agents were going to the bone, and then the radionuclide was being broken by an enzyme from the ligand, and that the chemistry of the radionuclide was determining what was going to happen with that radiometal. And this was really important because if it was based on the molecule, then the properties of the molecule were going to determine what happened. But if it was the radiometal, then it was the characteristics of that radiometal. And so by doing some metabolism studies, I was able to determine that it was actually mechanism 2 that was really what was resulting. And based on this work, we determined that the rhenium agents were really the best ones for moving forward. And fortunately for me, this got me my PhD and involved me to graduate and then move on. So it was really kind of a fun project. So from there, I went on to the Mallinckrodt Institute of Radiology at Washington University in St. Louis. And I went there because they had a big clinical trial program, and they were starting to look at radionuclides that were used for what they called positron emission tomography. And they looked like they would be a lot better for imaging. I had no experience at this. They were making isotopes with cyclotrons. So I wanted to go there and learn how to do that, and got a job. And so the first things that I was working on was trying to look at radionuclides that decayed that could be used for imaging that were better. And so the first ones I started working at was gallium-68. And there was a lot of interest in these because it could be used in a generator. And a generator is basically a portable source of that radionuclide that can be delivered to hospitals around the world, and they can basically utilize these agents. And this one seemed to have really good properties, but no one had really developed any pharmaceuticals out of it. So I looked at trying to develop pharmaceuticals that could be used for imaging the brain and the heart. And these are kind of the requirements that you needed. So it needed to be relatively small, it had to be neutral and lipophilic, and it had to be stable so that it wasn't going to come out of the chelator and bind to other proteins. So I started looking at these molecules and went on to characterize them. And we were lucky that we had baboons. And so we did some initial imaging, and we had this neutral lipophilic compound. And what we were able to show was that we had uptake in this baboon. So this is a MRI co-registered PET scan, and we were able to demonstrate that this was the first PET molecule that actually went into the brain. And so this was very, very exciting, and we actually got a patent out of this, and it went on into further development. We also looked at see if we could use this to image the heart, and this is actually some initial studies we actually did in dogs. And so what you can see here is this is actually the heart here. And so the compound initially goes into the lungs and the heart, but then it clears from the lungs, and then we see the uptake remaining in the heart. So again, this was like the first compound that you could actually use that for positron emission tomography. So this was very exciting based on the work that we were doing there. And we actually went on to get into clinical trials. About this time, the University of Missouri reached out to me, and they said, hey, we would like you to come to the research reactor They were actually having some financial problems, and they wanted someone to come in and try to build up the program. This is actually a picture of the research reactor. It's actually one of the biggest research reactors in the country. And actually what you're looking down to is in the pool of the reactor. It's an open pool reactor. And what you're looking at here is the blue glow. So when the reactor is running, these are electrons traveling faster than the speed of light. So you're seeing what they call Cherenkov radiation. And it's a really beautiful color. So I went there to work to help build up the program. Here are some of my collaborators, and we're standing kind of on the bridge of reactor. So going there, this was kind of like out in the country a little bit more. And I had 4 children. And so it enabled us to go back and get back into some of the farming that I grew up with when I was a kid. So I really like goats. So we raised goats, and the kids loved them. This is my young son, Hank. This is my oldest daughter, Morgan. And this is my youngest daughter, Mackenzie. They all have grandchildren now. And basically, all 3 of them actually now have 2 grandchildren. So I'm a grandmother of 6 grandchildren. And we developed a pond. We like to go out and do fishing. This is my husband, Leo. This is my other daughter, Madison, and they were out fishing. This is my hand here. I was trying to help them as they got back to the shore. So it kind of provided a safe environment to grow up. And my kids learned a little bit about farming and gardening while we were at Missouri. So when I went to the University of Missouri, I was really interested in getting into therapy. There was a growing interest in treating cancers that spread to multiple sites, and it was very difficult to treat them. And so what we were interested in looking at is what we know is that tumor cells, when they're growing, because they're pulling a lot of things in, they have what they call receptors on the surface, which they grab nutrients to feed the cell. So by targeting those receptors, we thought we could target radionuclides and then use it for imaging the cells and quantitating that uptake. But we could also deliver radionuclides for doing therapy, thereby basically giving off these particles that would break up the DNA and ablate those cells. So I was interested in doing this. And so we knew that the diseases varied, the tumor sizes varied. So what we wanted to do was to come up with kind of a library of radionuclides that had the same chemistry, but a variety of nuclear properties, so half-lives and beta energies. And the beta energy tells you how far that beta particle travels before it causes its destruction. So as a chemist, what I knew is that there was these rows at the bottom of the periodic table that we normally never pay any attention to. But they have these lanthanides, and the lanthanides, the chemistry is all the same. They're all +3, but their nuclear properties change, the half-lives and beta energies. And this is really important as we go into these targeted therapies. And they had large cross-sections, which meant when we went to produce them, we could produce large amounts. So I started looking at research into doing this. And this just kind of gives you an idea of why we're interested, because when these radionuclides decay and give off the beta particle, they travel these different distances. And these distances come important based on the size of the tumor, but also due to toxicity. And so based on the patient, you want to choose the radionuclide of interest and go in there. And so what I first started looking at was lutetium-177. It was easily to make and had this really short range, and we thought this might be of interest in basically treating patients. So we started developing the production of this, and about this time, they were looking at attaching lutetium to a modified growth hormone to basically treat patients that had neuroendocrine tumors. And here you can basically see a patient, and this was one of the first patients that they started to treat. So when they first started treating these patients, they were treating them with yttrium-90, and it turned out that the yttrium-90 was causing kidney toxicity, so we switched over to lutetium. The lutetium allows us to image these patients, and we started to see very positive impacts on these patients. And so this is actually the first radiopharmaceutical that was FDA approved for treating patients in the US, and it was very exciting to be part of this. Lutetium-177 now is the most heavily used radiotherapeutic radionuclide, and there's about 200 clinical trials that are interested in that. Unfortunately, what we saw as we went into this is about 30% of these patients don't respond. So we started looking at other radionuclides that could deliver a higher dose, but had a shorter range. So this led us to alpha particles. And so you can kind of see the difference here between alpha, beta, and gamma. And we thought that these alpha particles, with their higher dose to the normal tissues and the fact that they travel a smaller range, would give us higher efficacy in these patients. And so here you can see a patient. Again, this is a patient who has neuroendocrine tumors, and you can see the large number of tumors. They tried to treat this patient with lutetium and it wasn't working. So they switched over to an alpha emitter. And you can see that after one treatment, you don't see the tumors on the imaging. Here you can see the significant tumor load they had initially, and you can see that it's really dropped after that first treatment. So this is why we became so interested in actually trying to produce these alpha emitters, which were in short supply, and getting these into clinical trials. So some of the ways you treat these is actually by using accelerators. So we utilize accelerators for making these radiopharmaceuticals. We didn't actually have a cyclotron at the University of Missouri that could do that, but they did at the national laboratories. So if you're not familiar with the Department of Energy, they actually have 3 laboratories that have accelerators that they utilize for making these isotopes. These accelerators were originally purposed for doing high energy physics studies, but they've added capabilities that allow us to produce isotopes. Brookhaven was actually the first one to bring up these high energy accelerators to produce isotopes. Los Alamos was the second one, and we actually worked together to produce isotopes to support the national need. And Argonne has brought up an electron accelerator, which has unique capabilities that they can produce isotopes there. And so what becomes important about these isotopes is the energy that goes into the target material actually dictates what you can make. So at Brookhaven, we have a 200 MeV accelerator, which is fairly unique. And this allows us to produce isotopes all the way down. But importantly, what drew me here is that we could actually make the alpha emitter actinium-225. And this is why I came here, because there was very limited amounts of actinium-225. So there's a number of isotopes that you can actually make. Gallium-68, which you heard me talk about earlier, is actually made from accelerators from a generator from germanium-68. You can make strontium-82, which can be used to image the heart. And then there are other things that you can actually use that are used as sources for materials that are used on the industrial side for calibrating equipment. So actinium-225, this kind of shows you one of the big reasons why it's of interest. So there was this patient that was enrolled in a clinical trial, and it was actually they wanted to treat this patient with lutetium-177. And when they imaged this patient, what they saw is you see all this dark, high uptake in the skeleton. And what they realized is that they couldn't treat this patient with lutetium when it would ablate their bone marrow. So they switched this patient over to actinium-225. They gave them 3 treatments and then scanned the patient, and you can see that the tumors aren't lighting up anymore, showing that it's effective in this patient. They went on to give them another treatment of actinium-225, and again, you see that you don't see the tumors anymore, but they also have down here a biomarker that they follow, PSA. And you see originally that PSA was around 3,000. At the end here, it was at 0.1. this is a complete responder. This is a patient who wasn't responding to anything else. And this is their response for actinium-225. So this is why we've been interested in this and have been making it to help support the clinical use of this. So in summary, I hope that what you can see is I think science can be very, very rewarding. I had no idea that I was going to be given the opportunity to actually go in and develop these nuclides and these drugs that would eventually cure patients and help them live a really good life. The work that I do, basically it's as part of a team. So we have physicists, we have engineers, we have biologists, physicists that actually work together to help develop these drugs and basically go on and evaluate them. And really, it's an iterative process where we have to keep improving them and move forward. And I really enjoy working as part of a team. I enjoy working for the Department of Energy. They have a lot of very unique facilities, and we really work across the labs. The actinium-225 that I showed you, there was 3 labs that worked together to help develop the production and actually get that out there. And if we hadn't worked together, it would have probably taken a lot longer time to build that forward. And we continually work on enhancing our facilities and looking for what we need to do for tomorrow. So our goal is to develop something, hand it off to the community, and upgrade our facilities for working in the future. And so I've really enjoyed working at the national labs, and there's lots of opportunities for students to come work with us. There are programs where you can come and have fellowships, and you can come in and work in our labs. And we have a lot of students, even faculty, that actually come work with us. So if you're interested, reach out. We really enjoy having students come in because you're our future. And so we want to basically train you and have you come in. And on that note, I thank you for your time. I hope you've gotten some value at seeing my journey and the things that we've done. And I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. That was really interesting and amazing journey towards all your achievements. Yeah, you showed how much impact your work had on people's lives. So that's extremely important. We would like to hear some of our students. Do you have any questions? Please write it in the chat or raise your hand and you can ask your question. We have a few questions that were asked beforehand. So for example, how is your day-to-day life in your position?
My day-to-day life. So my day-to-day life is I run a group in which we have both production activities that we do, but we're also doing a lot of research. So part of what I'm doing is making sure that we have the money to do the research, but also talking to our researchers and evaluating the data and determining what the next steps are that we can do. But it's also, I mean, part of the fun part of my job is looking at what are we going to do in the future and coming up with, kind of that vision of what are the new things that we can take on and do. And to me, it's very exciting when I do something new for the first time. The first time that you've made that radionuclide that no one else has made. When you make a molecule that you've designed to say, I want this to go to cancer, and it actually goes there. I mean, that's just really exciting. And then when, the other thing is when you have a patient that comes up to you and says, wow, you saved my life. And that, so those are all really good things, but it takes a long process, but it's worth it.
So a lot of resilience and collaboration, and a lot of students and PhD that are working in your group and researchers that work together. So it's a community. It's a community of people. That's That's because sometimes we think researchers work by themselves, right? But it takes a village to come up with new discoveries now. So you really work with a lot of people, and you share the passion, and you share your interest in moving forward. There's
Yeah,
a few questions. Yeah, sorry.
that's okay. No, I was going to say it's for us, it is a team with bringing together people with different expertise that really helps us move things forward.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's really nice to be part of the team.
Yes. Yeah, diversity and the contribution of everybody, it is very important for research. We have few questions. Well, we have a lot of questions actually. That's good. Zaya is asking, what were your favorite classes in high school or early college, and any classes that you went that inspire you to go into this field?
Yeah, so when I was in high school, I took a lot of science classes, and I really enjoyed chemistry, physics, and biology. Um, and really, when we got the opportunity, which I'm not going to say was a lot, but when we got the opportunity to do the lab courses, to me, I'm really a hands-on person. So really being able to go in and look at things really kind of drove my interest. I will also say that I was very interested in writing in English. And sometimes people don't realize how important it is to do writing in our field. But a lot of times you're writing grants and you're writing papers. So having a good, strong background in writing as well as math, I think has really helped out. So to me, I think that being able to experiment and do those courses really drove my interest in having some type of a degree in science when I went on to go into college.
Yeah, absolutely. And we really reach out to our students and say, you're not, if you are a scientist, you don't have to give up your passion for writing, because there's a lot of things that you're gonna write. And the
Yeah,
more compelling and the better you are at writing, maybe you are more convincing and actually getting funds. So
yeah,
that's a really
yeah,
good skill.
yeah.
Um, Natalie is asking, can you explain more about the opportunities for students research in the program? She's really interested in that.
Yeah, so the national labs offer a lot of different programs. For instance, they have the SULI program. And so you can basically apply to that program, and then researchers will match themselves up with what your interests are. And then the National Lab will actually pay for you to work at the lab for about 10 weeks. And so you can go in, and if you're, if you know someone that you're interested in, a lot of times students will reach out to me and I can help put them into the program. But I have the opportunity that I have funds that I can actually bring in students outside of that program to come work with us on grants and so forth. But there's a lot of different opportunities that you can reach out to the national labs. And all the labs have something called the Office of Education Programs. So you can go to their websites and look for the Office of Education, and it'll talk to you about the different programs that you can sign up for and actually participate at the national labs. So workforce is very important to us, and you are our future. So we really want to engage with you and show you all the incredible things that we do at the national labs and get you engaged.
Thank you. And I'm going to post a link that Kathy suggested. If you go to the Society of Nuclear Medicine and Molecular Imaging website, there's a page about careers in nuclear medicine, and there's a very interesting video. So I
Yeah.
posted it in the chat.
Yeah, there's a lot of variety of different jobs that you can do in nuclear medicine. If you go there, there's something called the Job Series of Tomorrow, and it walks you through what it's like to be a radiochemist or a technologist or a physician, and the different things and just all the different opportunities. So if you're interested, please take the opportunity to go take a look at that.
We'll try to share the video when we send out the recording of this. We'll share the link when we send the recording of this webinar on this Sage Live.
Thank you.
Zaya is also asking, were you scared when creating new medicines that they would not go according to plan?
I don't think so. I think I was so interested in the questions that were being asked that even when things didn't go the way that you wanted, you learned something. So oftentimes, you would design a molecule and it would go somewhere else, but by it not working, you learned what not to do and how to modify the molecule to get it to go somewhere else. So I always looked at it, you're not always going to be successful, but you're going to learn something along the way that's going to help get you to success. And even the negative things are important things to learn that help improve as you move along. So, and without experiencing the negative things, I would never have been successful. So I appreciated learning as I went along.
Thank you. So again, the STEM classes you took in high school for the career, I think you already talked a little bit about that, saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I said I took chemistry, biology, and science, and then when I went to college, like I said, I started out in engineering, and I took, I think your first year you have to take physics, chemistry, and biology, and physics. And what I learned is I was much more interested in the chemistry and physics classes, and I didn't really go into it, but I really liked understanding how things working, and that's what really drew me more into science and away from engineering. And I liked working in the lab, and that really helped kind of guide me more into what I wanted to do.
Thank you. What would you say, Damaris is asking, what do you say help you get this position what help you get this position the most?
The position that I have at Brookhaven.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I would say that one of the things that has helped me is not being afraid to try new things and to stand up to be a leader. And so I have probably been a little bit aggressive about going to, for instance, meetings and seeking out opportunities and talking to people and getting them to support me and getting my name out there. And I think you shouldn't be afraid. Really, go out there and network. It's really important that you engage with other people and seek new opportunities. Oftentimes people have asked me to do something that was not necessarily in my wheelhouse, but by taking that as a stretch goal and doing it, it gave me opportunities that I wouldn't have had otherwise. So don't be afraid to try something new. Don't be afraid to take on something and figure it out. I think it's really important for you to, I guess the other thing is if you try something new and you don't like it, change. Don't stay in something that's not in your best interest. It's really important for you to get the support and resources that you need and seek that out. So if you try something and it doesn't work, don't be afraid of making a change. Right now, in all fields in science, the need is very great. And so the opportunities for you are immense. Value yourself, know how important you are, and don't let other people make you feel otherwise. You are very valuable, and everyone, make sure that you understand that and ask for what you need to be successful and make sure that you're getting it.
Thank you. And this is something that we remind our students in all our professional growth sessions, in our leadership sessions, during the internship, and to network and to speak up for what you want and speak with other people and understand really what is the path, what is the way, the right way to actually achieve what you need, what you want. So, and there are a lot of mentors on the Sage Journey program that can also help you with that. So don't be afraid to reach out. One thing that we ask all our speakers is what are their hobbies outside their work, and there is Arnavi that is asking what kind of activity did you do outside of school that got you more interested in having a degree in science.
Yeah, so I'm someone who really enjoys being outside. I enjoy nature. I enjoy hiking. I used to be a very avid cyclist, although I don't have the time to do that as much as I would like to. The other thing is that I'm really interested in art. And so one of the things that I did for a while was sculpture and pottery. And so understanding the science behind how to make the clays and glazes was another thing that really led me to believe that I should move into science. But I think artistry is something that I'm very interested in art. I also really like clothes and jewelry. And I tend to make some of my own clothes, and so it's something else. I think it's important to have outside activities because you can't just completely focus on your job, and it gives you time away, and it gives you a different way of looking at things, which actually helps inform how you do your science sometimes. And of course, I have 4 kids. That took a lot.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Esmeralda is asking an interesting question. Anything you regret not doing or doing that could have helped you or didn't help you to get to the place you are right now? So,
I think the thing I would say that I regret is that when I finished my degree, I wish I would have taken a postdoc overseas and spent a couple years doing that because it became much harder to do that later on. So I think that would have been a nice experience, and I wish I would have done that. I think I was way too serious and really too focused on getting that job and pushing it forward. I wish I would have taken a bit more time to kind of, like I said, take a postdoc overseas, kind of experience different cultures and different things. I think that would have been a wonderful experience to have. So, yeah.
thank you. Yeah, that's actually, I always say go and study in Italy since I'm
Yeah.
Italian.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
research there, the research in Europe. Why not?
Mm,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Let's see. What is some advice you have for students that are interested in working in the medical field or in your field in specifically?
So, I would go out there and look for what opportunities are there. I think it's important to have a mentor. So like I told you, when I saw this professor doing this work, I reached out to him, and he's become a long-term mentor, helping me, guiding me through what I need through the field. And I think regardless of whether you want to go into medicine or not, it's important to have strong advocates. So make sure that you have good mentor. And also, I mean, like and people laugh about this, but I have good friends who, when I run into problems, I talk to them. And, sometimes they tell me, get your act together. You're acting like a baby now. Deal with this and move on. And it's important to have people that are going to tell you the truth like that. You don't just need people who are always going to tell you, oh, you're great, you're wonderful. You need people who are going to tell you when, you're not interpreting this correctly. You're being stupid about this, and make sure you have people in your life that you can depend on to tell you that. But if you want to do something in the medical field, look for places that are actually focusing on that type of research, and go talk to those people and get some advice on what you should do to basically move forward.
Thank you. That's why we have this webinar, right? We give you the chance to talk with people that are the experts, very expert leader in their fields, and you have the chance to ask questions. And this is really a great start. And I see a lot of questions. I'm not sure we will be able to answer them all, but we'll keep Kathy here with us a little bit more to keep on answering the question that you're asking. What are the many other degrees people are graduating to work in this field?
So the people who basically work in this field, so you can get a PhD in chemistry and work here. But I also have people who have a bachelor's in chemistry that work in our group, who help do research and production. We have a lot of people who are in engineering, and from chemical engineering to mechanical engineering that actually work in our field. Physics is really important, that actually work in the field, and of course biology. We have people in biology that work in the field. The majority of people in my group are probably engineers that work in the field, and then chemists. We also have physicists, which are really important to help understand some of the nuclear properties that are going on. So it's a variety of people, actually. Yeah.
That was a very good question, because it's not only one degree. It's like a variety of experiences and backgrounds and knowledges that brings people together, and that makes it happen. Thank you, Talia, for asking this. What is the thing that you love the most or enjoy the most about your job?
I would say there's probably two things. One thing is actually getting to interact with students. So, when a student comes into your lab and they start getting excited about the research that they're doing and they understand the impact, I mean, it's nice that you've been able to provide that opportunity to someone. The other thing is it's just always exciting that, that first time when you've planned an experiment to do something new and it works. To me, that's, it's just really exciting to realize that you've created something new for the first time. And so I always get excited when that happens and it works. And sometimes even when things don't go well, because then it pushes you to look at it differently and say, what is it I did not know here? What is this telling me? And a lot of times, like I said, when things didn't work, that's when I learned something new that helped me move the project forward. So it's really important to, when things don't work, to really think, why is it not working? What is this telling me? And that is really the things that have helped me the most. Yeah.
Thank you, Kathy. Yeah, and I join Orly in saying it is truly inspiring to hear about your contribution to medicine. And your journey to arrive where you are. Thank you for sharing this with us. It was very interesting, and seeing the amount of questions from the students, it was a very, very interesting talk, and thank you for sharing it with us.
Well, thank you. And you guys, if any of you want to come work at Brookhaven, just look me up and reach out, and I'd be happy to help you. So,
yes, absolutely. And you can always reach out to our SAGE coordinator, so to ask questions and understand how you can reach out to all our speakers and the researchers that work at the national labs. If you are interested in internship, we have a lot of possibilities, and there is one specific Sage Live that is recorded that talks about internship. You need to start thinking about internship very early. I know internship are usually in the summer, but you need to start thinking about it in even November, December, before the summer, so you can go through all the ITER, prepare, and get ready for the summer internship. So thank you again, Kathy, for your talk. Thank you for
Thank
staying
you.
with us. I want to remind our students to that this YouTube video will be recorded, and you can share it with all your friends, and talk about Sage and the Sage Live, and share the information. Remember to follow us on social media. Sage Live is every Saturday, one Saturday a month, and the next Sage Live will be in May, and we'll talk specifically about national laboratories of the Department of Energy. Okay, but remember to follow us. Thank you again, Kathy. There's
Thank
a
you,
lot of
guys. Bye.
messages that says thank you. Everybody's really grateful for your time. And we know you're very busy, so we are grateful too. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Enjoy your weekend. Bye, guys.